We had one father describe walking with his son across the parking lot on the way to his basketball game. And his son was carefree and upbeat, totally fine. And then he spotted his mom's car. And in an instant, his whole mood shifted. He got anxious. He started complaining about a stomach ache. And the dad realized what was happening. His son wasn't just heading into a basketball game. He was walking into a different kind of game, a game of parental allegiance. The unspoken pressure to prove devotion to mom by becoming distant, aloof, maybe even rejecting dad while she was around. Just the sight of mom's car, just the awareness of what would be expected was enough to create stress that this child just wasn't equipped to carry, and honestly, shouldn't have to. Welcome to the Blended Family Breakthrough Podcast. We're your hosts, Mike and Kim.
We believe in a world where blended families can experience a future full of hope, connection, and peace.
That's why we offer tools, strategies, and guidance that move you from a place of confusion and conflict to experiencing a life of confidence and connection.
We're so glad you're joining us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations as we cover everything from romance to parenting, and yes, even dealing with that difficult ex.
So if you're ready to experience breakthrough in your blended family, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Well, hey there, welcome, and thank you so much for being here with us today. You know, we do not take lightly the honor it is for you to choose spending time with us here on the show. And you are such a blessing, and we're so glad you're here. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I was probably 8, maybe 9 years old, and I was sitting in our living room, and I was stuck. I was stuck between what felt like right and wrong. I was stuck between two sets of people that I genuinely loved, and it just seemed like there was no way out. And so I sat there in my early 80s outfit with tears streaming behind my pop bottle glasses, feeling the pressure of relational binds. You see, I grew up in a blended family. My mom passed away when I was just 13 months old. And during my dad's 6 years of single parenting, we lived with my maternal grandparents. And as you can imagine, having just lost their daughter, my grandparents took extra special care of me. There was a really strong attachment in our relationship. But not long after my dad remarried, some battles started between the homes that I was moving between. You know, I loved spending 1 or 2 weekends each month with my grandparents, and they were really my primary tie back to my deceased mom. But things weren't working very well between them and my parents. So it was decided that I wouldn't be going over to my grandparents for a while, and I was put in the position of having to verbally support that decision. And I remember it vividly. And to this day, it was one of the worst moments in my memory. Now, sparing you all the details, this was a pretty extreme moment of pressure that was being put on a child. But the thing is, it wasn't really about this moment. It was about all the moments leading up to that created tension between these two homes. And it left me in a bind over and over in the months and the years that were leading up to this.
Thanks for sharing that, honey. I know that's a really emotional story, really tough situation. But that's where we're going to focus today. And we need to focus here. This is so important because we want to help you examine 2 common emotional binds that show up in blended families, both rooted in loyalties and allegiances. And these binds create a heavy emotional burden for children. And that burden often spills out into challenging dynamics for everyone in the home.
Exactly.
So first, for today, we're going to describe what these binds are and how they impact kids. Then we'll walk you through practical ways to support your children and help them manage the emotional tension that they may be carrying. We'll also touch on healthy ways to manage your own discomfort and pain, because that's a piece of this. And if you've been listening to the show for any length of time, you know this isn't a new topic for us. And the reason we focus on understanding our kids' emotional world is simple. If we can't step into our kids' shoes and see what life looks like through their unique lens, it's going to be incredibly difficult to bond and build strong, secure relationships with them. And then we aren't fully able to offer the best support and help them break free from these emotional binds.
That's right. It's funny, as adults, we often get hyper-focused on the kid's behavior, right? Particularly when it's negative or if it's directed at us, especially, right? But when we're unaware of what's going on underneath the behavior, we're actually missing out on really valuable opportunities. And let's face it, kids can create a lot of painful interactions and chaos in our homes, right? I mean, that they are a source of those things.
Of course.
And it's also true that their behavior is often misunderstood by us. But when we're able to approach our children from a new perspective, rather than labeling them, oh, that kid's such a brat, or focusing mostly on compliance, you just need to get in line, we can actually help them to move through the difficult emotions. And that actually ends up impacting behavior.
Exactly. The truth is, you can help release the pressure your kids feel in these emotional binds. And when you do, you'll often experience less chaos and fewer negative behaviors in your home. And the beautiful thing is that over time, that kind of emotional relief nurtures stronger bonds and deeper connection for the whole family. So let's dive into this first emotional bind called the loyalty bind.
Yes, let's do that. And by the way, if you're thinking, yeah, oh man, Mike and Kim, I've already heard you talk about this loyalty bind thing. I just want you to hang in there because we may offer you the tiniest new perspective or insight that could unlock something really significant for you today. So if you're not familiar with this thing called a loyalty bind, well, let's start with what is a loyalty bind and how does it impact kids? So a loyalty bind is a perceived tension in a child's loyalty between mom and stepmom or dad and stepdad. So a child who's stuck in a loyalty bind believes that enjoying their step-parent in one home or receiving love from them somehow equates to a betrayal of their biological parent in the other home, right? Stepdad in this home, bio dad in the other home. It's this tension that they feel. And we hear about loyalty binds all the time from couples that we work with. And one example that we really like is this real life story from Patricia Pappernow's book, Surviving and Thriving in Stepfamily Relationships, because it really captures the stress and the confusion that many kids carry. And it also highlights the painful emotions that step-parents experience, which is a very real thing as well. Now, the conclusion of this story gives us some insight into how a loyalty bind creates painful interactions and can negatively impact relationships in stepfamilies. So, honey, you want to read the first part of that story for us?
Sure. And by the way, this is a real life story. So, stepmom Claire took the afternoon off from work to lovingly prepare her stepdaughter's favorite birthday cake from scratch. Now, after the family enjoyed birthday dinner, Claire brought out her work of art, expecting her stepdaughter to be thrilled. Instead, the girl barely acknowledged Claire's effort, picked at her cake, and said she felt sick, and left the table. Understandably, Claire, as a stepmom, was crushed. She was hurt and disappointed. She felt unappreciated.
That's right. And if you're a step-parent, maybe you can relate to that. But the story doesn't end there. This is really interesting. Many years later, Claire and her stepdaughter, who's now an adult, reflected on that very night. And the stepdaughter was finally able to put some words to what was happening inside her in that moment. She communicated, I felt so bad about not eating your cake, but I just felt funny. I don't even know why. It just felt wrong. It's weird. Like if I ate that cake, I was being mean to my mom.
Patricia Pappernow goes on to explain that loyalty binds in stepfamilies are normal. And it makes sense. Step family structure often puts adults and kids on different wavelengths. We can be experiencing the same moment, but interpret it through completely different lenses. Children experiencing a loyalty bind will keep a step parent at arm's length, even when they do really enjoy them, simply because they're worried about hurting their biological parent in the other home. They may waffle back and forth in their opinions and engagement with a step parent. One week they're excited to see them and they interact in a positive way. The next, they make negative comments and avoid interaction altogether.
So, what can we do if we suspect that a child is maybe stuck in this loyalty bind? Let's look at it from 3 different perspectives. First, how do we support the kids emotionally as they navigate these loyalty binds? Then we'll talk about the step parent and how they can cope with that very real pain that comes with this dynamic. And finally, we'll talk about what bio parents need to be aware of so that they can avoid feeding into the bind unintentionally. So we'll look at those 3 lenses. Then we'll get to the other bind that we want to talk about today.
Yeah. So first, let's talk about helping our kids process emotions so that we can start loosening this bind. And we want to start by creating a safe space for the child to talk about what they're feeling. Normalize it. Now, if you want to help your child move beyond a loyalty bind, you need to slow down enough to understand things from their perspective. Most often, that safe person is the bio parent, but it can also be an empathetic step parent if the child is open to that kind of connection. The posture here is curiosity. Listening with empathy to what your child is experiencing, even if it doesn't make sense to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that concept of a loyalty bind talk that Patricia Parental talks about in her book to help loosen this bind. A parent, a step parent, maybe another close adult can say something like, hey, I know that having a step parent can feel confusing sometimes. And I want you to know that your mom will always have a special and permanent place in your heart and in your life. And I hope you do come to care about your stepmom. And if you do, her place in your heart will be a totally different place than your mom's place. And that's okay. You see how we're affirming this difference. And rather than trying to fix the problem for them or change the child's perspective, we're putting our empathy skills to work. And in the midst of all this, we want them to be able to express the hard stuff, even those negative feelings that they have toward a step parent, like, I hate that Claire, right? And still be able to respond with some empathy. Like, yeah, it really does change things when Claire's here, doesn't it? It just used to be us. And I know this can be hard sometimes. Yeah. See how that we're not fixing anything, but we're addressing it.
Exactly. And you'll need to set your own frustrations and emotions aside as much as you can. Don't get defensive. Don't react or overreact. Stay focused on understanding your child's perspective by asking good questions and listening more than you speak. One easy wrong turn bio parents make here is they kind of expect or demand their child to go and give an apology to the step parent. You made them feel really bad and you need to go tell them you're sorry. One thing we don't want to do is expect our children to carry the emotional weight of anyone in the home, especially the step parent.
Yeah.
So that's not always the wisest thing to do, especially right out of the gate. They may come on their own to want to go and apologize, but forcing it or demanding it can cause even more trouble for kids emotionally. And if you believe your child may be carrying a loyalty bind, we encourage you to listen to episode 222 and 223, where we outline the 5 steps of emotion coaching. You've heard us talk about this before, but these emotion coaching steps are so great, and they're drawn from Dr. John Gottman's book, Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child. And these steps will give you a clear guide for helping your child process through their difficult emotions.
Yeah. One of the most powerful parts of emotion coaching is just helping your kids name what they're feeling. I feel confused. I feel sad. I feel like I'm being mean to my mom if I have fun with my stepmom, right? Just being able to articulate that and name it is often the breakthrough that's needed, because now those feelings are known by a trusted adult in a safe space if you're able to regulate your own emotions and not try to fix it or react to it. And that alone can reduce tension significantly.
Right. One thing I love about emotion coaching is that the last step is problem solving, but this is not fix-it mode. We're not trying to convince the child that they should feel or act differently. There often is not a neat silver lining here, and dismissing the child's reality really isn't going to help. Problem solving in this context is about helping your child accept what isn't going to change while brainstorming what might make things a little easier right now. Sometimes a child will say something like, well, I don't want a step parent. I don't want them here. That's not a problem you can fix. It's an emotion you can help them carry. After listening and affirming, you can still help a child identify smaller things that will help make the dynamic a little easier, and to do that in a way that they can own their own solutions. Now, if you want to learn more, go ahead and head over to the show notes and check out those 2 episodes.
And there's a couple things I just want to point out here too. Please don't hear us saying that we don't hold kids accountable for poor behavior, but what we're really saying is we don't make them responsible for a step-parent's feelings. Those are 2 very different things. And if you need help deciphering between those 2, maybe book a free coaching call with us. We'd love to talk to you and see how we can help. And you know what? Remember also that different kids in the same family can move at different paces. It's okay to support one child a little differently than another based on what they're actually experiencing and expressing. Okay, hopefully all that makes sense. Let's keep going. So we talk a little bit about supporting the child. Now let's talk about how do step-parents cope with the rejection and the frustration of the behavior that tends to come out when a child is caught in this loyalty bind. In that story, Claire worked really hard to make her stepdaughter's birthday special. And then the cake was kind of rejected, which is kind of like rejecting Claire. And those efforts she made went unacknowledged. Like, ugh, ouch, that hurts, right?
Yeah.
Being rejected, even for understandable reasons, is still painful. It doesn't change the pain. And sometimes step-parents respond by trying harder and harder to connect, just pressing in, love me, love me, love me, right? Only to be pushed away even more. Relational bonds in stepfamilies take time, particularly for a child who's struggling with a loyalty bind. Trust, respect, love, none of those things can be forced or rushed. They have to develop slowly over time. Yeah.
And step parents, you've got to keep your expectations in check. And remember to focus on a crock pot mentality here. Time and low heat are absolutely essential. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about when I talk about the crock pot, we'll put a link to episode 72 in the show notes, which describes Ron Deal's crock pot approach and why it's the best way to create healthy bonded relationships. It's also important to maintain an attitude of empathy towards a stepchild who's struggling to accept you and not take it personally.
That's right. And, that's not easy. We totally get that. But here's the good news. Research confirms that the early years of stepfamily life tend to be the hardest for kids and adults. Like we're just kind of navigating all this and getting to know each other. But over time, those negative interactions often start to soften and some even kind of disappear. So don't lose hope. There are natural growing pains that come along with blending, and navigating loyalty binds is a pretty common one.
Yeah. And don't give up or shut down on your stepchild. It's tempting to want to disconnect, to kind of protect yourself from experiencing more pain. But resist that urge. keep showing up well. Just keep your expectations in line, understanding what might be happening under the surface. And in order to do that, you might need to find a safe person in your life, a coach or a counselor or a friend, to process what you're carrying. We encourage you to practice a lot of self-care. Do what you need to do to stay emotionally healthy and connected to your family, even when you're struggling here. Now, if you need a little more encouragement, we've put a link to episode 159, How to Stay Hopeful as a Step-Parent When You're Continually Rejected and Hurt. Or you also might want to join us in the Blending Together community to process and strategize with us and with other couples just like you who are trying to navigate these challenges as well. You can learn more about that by following the link in the show notes.
That's right. Okay, before we move on to our next emotional bind, let's talk about the role a bio-parent plays in either tightening or loosening their child's loyalty bind. Bio-parents, you have a lot of influence here, maybe more than you think. And that starts with being aware of how we might unintentionally feed loyalty binds. First, we want to encourage you to remember loyalty binds can show up in both homes when ex-spouses remarry. If we want to ease the tension for our kids, we have to be really careful about how we talk about the adults in the other home. The urge to complain about an ex or their new partner, it's really powerful. We get it. But venting in front of the kids often increases a child's confusion, and it can intensify loyalty binds between the two homes. So be careful not to put your child in the position of choosing loyalties. If they already feel torn between you and the step-parent in the other home, bad-mouthing that step-parent is only going to increase their stress. Even moderate tension between adults tends to fuel this dynamic and makes things quite a bit harder for kids.
Yes. Kids need this clear message from you. It's okay for you to care about your step-parent in the other home, and I won't be hurt by that. If your child wants to share about the positive experiences they enjoy while at the other home, engage with them. Be happy for them. And if that creates feelings of insecurity, fear, or jealousy around your child's relationship with the step-parent, it's best for the child if you can learn to manage your own emotions away from them. Again, with a trusted friend, coach, or a counselor. Don't allow your discomfort to seep out onto your child. They're doing their best to navigate and adjust to many changes as they move between homes. Please don't make things harder for them with disparaging remarks or disapproval. Instead, be confident knowing that no one can break the loving bond you have with your children. They love and need you no matter what kind of bond they develop with a step-parent. You don't ever need to compete. Your goal as a loving parent is to loosen emotional binds and free your children from unnecessary guilt and stress simply by allowing them to enjoy time in both of their homes.
That sounds beautiful, honey, but I know there's some people that are listening going, well, I'm not the one feeding into the loyalty bind. It's my ex and their new spouse that does all the bad mouthing toward us. Right? Now, that might be true, but fighting fire with fire, in the end, only ends up burning the kids, right? The reality is you can't control how adults in the other home behave, but you can be thoughtful about your words and attitudes. And so we encourage you to stay focused on what's best for your kids and reducing their emotional tension with everything you have, okay? And don't forget about your spouse in all of this. Bio-parents, you also play a role when your spouse takes a hit from a loyalty bind. Sometimes parents don't know what to do when a child disregards the step-parent, their spouse. But your compassion can be the most powerful tool for steadying an upset step-parent. You could say something like, ouch, you really worked hard on that cake. That was a loving gesture, and I appreciate you doing that, and I'm so sorry that your feelings got hurt. If you jump into defense mode over your child, or you start acting like, oh, it's not a big deal, Claire, you shouldn't be so upset about that, it's not helpful. Sometimes bio parents get defensive, not because they don't care, but because they experience their child simply differently than the step parent does.
Yeah. And we want you to know loyalty binds are normal, and everyone in a blended family is living with different perspectives and pressures. Your kids are managing complex relationships between multiple adults, some with deep attachment in bio relationships, and others who are newer in step relationships and don't yet have the same degree of trust. And often, kids can't even explain what's happening inside them. They're not thinking, I'm in a loyalty bind. Just like the little girl in our story. She couldn't even put words to it until she was an adult. Kids are just reacting to dynamics that feel confusing and heavy, like that stepdaughter. It just felt funny. I don't even know why. It just felt wrong. Like if I ate that cake, I was being mean to my mom. Very confusing dynamics for a child.
That's right. So if a child in your home seems to be rejecting a step parent, it doesn't automatically mean they don't care about them. They could be stuck in a loyalty bind. The goal is to be patient and remember that relational bonds take time. In the meantime, you can focus on some of these practical things we've been talking about to ease that loyalty bind tension as your family grows forward together. Okay, so let's focus for a bit on the second type of emotional bind that children of divorce sometimes experience. We call that the parental allegiance.
So first, what is a parental allegiance? Step-family expert Ron Deal says, kids get stuck in the dilemma of parental allegiance when they feel the tension of having to align with one parent over the other. The perception that they must choose between mom or dad. It sounds like this in the heart of a child. Whose side am I supposed to be in? Who should I agree with, mom or dad? Sometimes it's even, who's right and who's wrong, mom or dad?
Yeah, this is pretty hard on the heart of a child. And in fact, this is the one that I was experiencing all those years ago in the living room at 9 years old. This tugging on my heartstrings of whether I was going to be loyal to my dad and stepmom or whether I was going to be loyal to my grandparents. And no matter what, I was going to lose. I was going to lose something.
And you just wanted to love all of them.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You see, when a kid's stuck in a parental allegiance, they're no longer free to simply be a kid who enjoys both parents, or like me, parents and grandparents, right? Instead, they start to get preoccupied with managing the adults, trying to make sure everyone's okay, prevent conflict, and protect the peace. And here's what makes it especially heavy. Many kids start to believe that in order to take care of one parent emotionally, that means they have to align with that parent, even if it means distancing from or even rejecting the other parent. So even though they do love that other parent and genuinely want to enjoy time with them, they feel trapped in an impossible dilemma. If I laugh too much over there, I'm hurting dad's feelings. If I show affection, someone's going to feel rejected. If I talk about dad here, mom's mood's going to turn and she'll be upset with me. Yeah. See, it's a bind.
Yeah. My daughter Annika was stuck in a parental allegiance for a pretty long season, and it was so hard on her. And I'll just share one story. We've told this on the show before, I'm sure, but it's worth repeating. We were on vacation visiting my family, and my brother, who's a rock climber, took us out climbing.
It was fun.
Yeah. Now, Annika, who's always been a bit of an adrenaline junkie.
I love that about her.
Kind of like you, yeah. She was absolutely thrilled. She was fully engaged in this activity all day. She was smiling, laughing. She was just in a great mood, and she felt really good about what she accomplished. As our climbing adventure was wrapping up, Annika asked if she could call her dad. She was proud, like I said, of what she'd done, and she wanted to share it with him. But it didn't take long for the excitement on her face to slowly fade. She got off the call with her dad and was quiet and sullen. And that mood lasted for hours. It was a visible shift. Mm-hmm. It was obvious her dad couldn't celebrate the moment with her. Mm-hmm. And instead, whether intentionally or not, he made her feel guilty and bad for enjoying her time with us. And that's what parental allegiance does to kids. It takes a moment that should feel pure and joy and fills it with pressure and guilt.
That's right. And that can show up in the everyday moments too, not just the big, exciting ones. We had one father describe walking with his son across the parking lot on the way to his basketball game. And his son was carefree and upbeat, totally fine. And then he spotted his mom's car. And in an instant, his whole mood shifted. He got anxious. He started complaining about a stomach ache. And the dad realized what was happening. His son wasn't just heading into a basketball game. He was walking into a different kind of game, a game of parental allegiance. The unspoken pressure to prove devotion to mom by becoming distant, aloof, maybe even rejecting dad while she was around. Just the sight of mom's car, just the awareness of what would be expected was enough to create stress that this child just wasn't equipped to carry. And honestly, shouldn't have to.
That inner tug of war creates a lot of pressure, and that pressure doesn't always come out as words. It often shows up as physical or emotional stress, moodiness, withdrawal, irritability, anxiety, or acting out. Not because the child is trying to be difficult, but because they're carrying an emotional burden that was never meant to be theirs. The goal is to take our kids out of the middle of parental allegiance so they don't feel responsible for our emotions, and to give them this clear message. It's okay to love both your parents. You don't have to choose between us.
Mm-hmm. And yes, it's possible that you may have an ex who seems to be intentionally feeding parental allegiance in your child, or maybe they're even toxic toward your household. And if that's you, hang with us, because what we're about to share matters even more in those difficult circumstances. And we'll also direct you to some helpful resources.
Yeah. Here's a tough reality when it comes to some kids dealing with parental allegiance. Sometimes a child will align with an under-functioning parent. For example, maybe dad is struggling with mental health challenges or substance abuse. Maybe he has a hard time holding a job, managing daily life, or staying emotionally steady. In those situations, a child can feel compelled to step in and take care of that parent, often by carrying adult responsibilities because they love their dad and desperately want him to be okay.
Yeah.
This can also happen when the other parent is lonely, depressed, or emotionally fragile. The child feels guilty for leaving them and worries about them while they're at your home. They start living with this quiet sense of responsibility. And sometimes a child will even say it out loud. Mom, you're doing great, but my dad is hurting and he really needs me.
Mm-hmm. So if you've got a child who's showing signs of being stuck in the emotional bind of parental allegiance, what can you do? Well, first, be aware of what not to do so that you can avoid inadvertently feeding that parental allegiance. You might not intentionally be adding to the pressure of a parental allegiance, but you could be doing some things that aren't helpful, such as invading that other parent's time with excessive calls or texts to the kids. Now, I know this sounds kind of counterintuitive, but you actually want to protect your child's time with their other parent and allow them the space to be fully present and engaged. That actually releases the bind. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another way that parents can unintentionally feed this is by blaming the other household for financial pressure or emotional pain. Well, we could afford to go to the movies if your mom didn't have to have her support check every month.
Yeah, that's not helpful,
No.
right? Or even unintentionally guilt-tripping the kids for enjoying time in the other home. Oh, I'm really glad you had fun at your dad's, sweetheart, and I just pretty much sat here by myself feeling bored most of the weekend.
Yeah.
Right?
Or I missed you so much.
Yes. Over missing a child can
Yeah.
be challenging. Yeah.
Or oversharing adult issues with your kids, sharing personal or emotional struggles with them. Well, I guess your mom's moved on with her new boyfriend and I don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
There are certain things that should be processed with another trusted adult, not your child. Be aware of what's appropriate and inappropriate.
We're also feeding parental allegiance when we start judging or criticizing the other home's rules, routines, parenting styles, or any of that in front of the children, right? Saying stuff like, I can't believe your dad makes you do chores or turn off your phone at night. That just seems controlling to me. It's not helpful. Right? To avoid tightening a parental allegiance in your kids, you really need to stop before you speak, even if they aren't in the room, but they're within earshot. Take a moment to check your mindset and your motive. Ask yourself, am I focused on freeing my kids to love both parents? Or is my attitude and behavior quietly shackling them into parental allegiance? Am I focused on what my kids need most right now or on my own sense of justification and momentary gratification? It feels good to complain about that other home, right? But it doesn't really get us anywhere.
No, it backfires. And none of us will manage this perfectly every time.
Nope.
I certainly didn't. But the more you can hold on to this idea of having a free the kids mindset, the more likely you'll show up well in the moments that matter most. One effective way to do this is to find the neutral zone and stay there. Whenever things are going on in the other home or the topic of your ex comes up, and when you have to interact with the other home, your job is to move into the neutral zone.
Yep. And here's a simple way to do that. Challenge yourself to ask questions rather than make statements. Curiosity actually lowers the temperature. Declarations raise it. Choose not to overreact or jump to negative conclusions, but instead look at things through an objective lens, be calm, and stay in the neutral zone.
Yes. Along with that, we encourage you to be determined to cut the comparisons and refuse to compete with the other home. Step out of the comparison mindset and stop measuring yourself against them. This is really a waste of your time and energy. Instead, stay focused on what your kids need and on being who you need to be to show up well for your kids. And let's be honest, sometimes you will have strong opposing opinions and feel angry, resentful, or jealous of what's happening with the other home.
Yep.
Especially if it seems like your kids are aligning with that other parent. Those emotions are real. But processing those emotions in front of your child or resorting to bad-mouthing to soothe your own discomfort, that's going to feed parental allegiance and hurt your children.
That's right. Instead, you want to identify safe people that you can process with. Two kinds of friendships help most. There's the venting friends. That's someone who lets you blow off steam, but they do it without judgment. Okay. Or the growing friend. That's someone who helps you to regain perspective and move toward a more objective mindset. But it might not be that helpful to try and process with that agreeable friend that tends to feed your justification or judgment. Yeah, you're right. You should get back at so-and-so because of this and that. Sometimes we've got these great friends who have our best interests in mind and they just want to be on our side, but it doesn't really challenge us to grow.
Yeah, they lead us in the wrong direction.
That's right. So be thoughtful about that. And depending on your situation, counseling or coaching can be a really healthy option in helping you to stay focused and respond well instead of reacting poorly.
Here's the bottom line. When you feel jealousy, resentment, anger, comparison, or a need to compete kind of rumbling inside you, treat that as a warning light. I'm drifting out of the neutral zone. Catch yourself and choose to move back into that neutral position. This can help you manage yourself well and avoid unintentionally tightening a parental allegiance bind for your kids. Now, even if it feels like your kids have aligned with your ex, even if you feel misunderstood or treated unfairly, remember this. Hear me. Your kids still need your strong, secure guidance and your steady, consistent love.
Mm-hmm.
Your relationship with them may feel fragile in the moment, but you are essential. You bring value to their lives, even in the middle of parental allegiance.
Mm-hmm.
So please do not lose hope and don't give in to negativity. Stay grounded, stay steady, and keep choosing the long game. Do
That's
the
right.
right next thing.
That's right. Okay, now that we've clarified what not to do, let's talk about some healthy ways to help your kids manage and gradually loosen the tension of parental allegiance. Just like loyalty binds are common in blended families, parental allegiance can be a pretty normal part of what kids experience after divorce too. Even when both parents are genuinely trying to show up well, kids can still feel like they have to choose. Why is that so common? Well, simply because they're kids. They don't have experience in relationships like we have. They're trying to manage big emotions and complicated dynamics with a brain that's still developing, which means they're not always able to think clearly or logically about what's happening, and they shouldn't be expected to. One of the best things you can do for a child caught in a parental allegiance is to give them time and space to work through their emotional struggle without adding more pressure.
And that's hard because a lot of parents and some step parents just want to jump in and set the child straight. You know, I was definitely tempted to do that with Annika in that rock climbing story. I wanted to say something like, you know, Annika, your dad is being so petty. He has no right to make you feel guilty for having fun with us. This is our vacation. Just ignore him.
So that's what you wanted to say.
Yeah, so bad I wanted to say that because inside I was angry. It felt like he couldn't support her. And honestly, it felt like he ruined our day. I wanted vindication. I wanted to tell Annika what to think and feel based on what I was thinking and feeling.
So it sounds like you wanted some justice and like you wanted Annika to get back to being happy like she was before the phone call. Is that right?
Yep. But I'm really thankful in that moment I stopped myself and stayed in the neutral zone. I knew that I couldn't control what my ex said to her or how she felt after that call. But what I could control is whether I made the situation heavier for her emotionally or not.
Yeah. So is that why you kind of held back from setting her straight?
Yes, because if I had said what I wanted to say, I would have added pressure to her parental allegiance bind. And the message underneath it would have been something like, Annika, you need to side with me because your dad is wrong. And you need to snap out of this and be happy, because that would make me feel better.
So you'd be pressuring her to align with you and to take care of you emotionally.
Exactly. And that wouldn't have helped the situation at all. It definitely would not have helped my daughter. Ultimately, I would have been making things harder for her if I had done that.
Right. So in that moment, when you were both experiencing painful thoughts and emotions, you chose to step back a little bit, take a bit of a more objective view and give her some space. And I know that was really hard, honey. I know I was kind of preoccupied with our younger kids in this moment, but I do remember this moment. And, you know, did that mean that you never really addressed the parental allegiance with her? So did you just not talk to her about that kind of thing?
No, I had to choose the right timing to bring it up. So later, when things were calmer and she was in a different state of mind, I did initiate an emotion coaching conversation with her.
Okay, so that John Gottman process of emotion coaching that we talked about earlier, what did that sound like?
Well, it sounded like something like, you know, hey, honey, I noticed yesterday after you called your dad, you seemed a bit sad. Is that right?
And what do you remember about her response?
Well, she was quiet and she kind of just shrugged. And I could tell this was a sensitive topic for her. And because I didn't want to tighten the bind, I've stayed really soft in my tone, in my body language, everything. And I tried to keep that curiosity mindset.
Okay, so that was one line. Did she ever open up?
No, she did not open up in that moment, but that wasn't even the goal. My goal wasn't to get to the bottom of it and fix her. It was to convey the message that I see her and I want to understand what she's experiencing. This is a safe place, and to let her know that if she wanted to talk, I was there for her when she was ready. And again, adding pressure does not help. This dynamic isn't something to fix. This is a process to wade through mindfully. But I really do believe that it helped Annika to simply know that I noticed her struggle, I cared, and I was open to hearing what happened for her without being negative about her dad. And there were many other conversations like this, situations like this that came up where she did open up more and talk and go deeper with me. But in this particular situation, she just wasn't there yet. It was
sometimes it's just that first step of emotion coaching of just kind of acknowledging and validating, and that's all for the moment.
Creating the safe space.
Because the key is to come alongside a hurting child, and as Ron Deal says, hug the hurt. Often that's what they need most.
And even though she wasn't ready to talk about it, I did offer her a reassuring hug, and she seemed really comforted by that.
Providing understanding and comfort over pressure and vindication. That's what begins to release the tension of the parental allegiance.
Yes, but this is not easy.
That's right.
And of course, I did not always get this right. It's especially challenging when the other parent is feeding parental allegiance, as was the case with Annika.
That's right. Now, if you think that your ex might be inadvertently doing things or saying things that your child is really struggling with, and you have a co-parenting relationship where a conversation is possible, you might consider gently increasing their awareness of what feeds parental allegiances and how it impacts kids. But the key is how you approach it, right? Lead with some concern and curiosity, not accusation. That generally doesn't get us anywhere, right? And if it feels appropriate, you might even suggest that they listen to this episode so that the two of you as co-parents are working from the same language and framework.
Now, if you've already tried that approach, but they don't seem to be concerned or want to engage, then as hard as this is, you need to stop pouring your energy into trying to change or control your ex.
That's right.
It's unlikely that you'll be the one who shifts the attitudes and behaviors in the other home.
Yes, very unlikely.
Most of the time, that doesn't happen until someone other than you confronts it, or your ex experiences their own conviction to do something differently. So redirect your energy to what you can control, which is your role as a responsible, loving parent. Stay grounded in the neutral zone and make sure that your words and actions are steady and appropriate, regardless of what your ex is saying or doing. Don't use their behavior to justify your own. Okay, an eye for an eye approach doesn't punish your ex. It only hurts your kids.
That's right. Now, like we mentioned earlier, there are situations where it's evident that the other home is purposely engaging in manipulation or bad-mouthing, maybe slander, or actively undermining your relationship with your child. If that's your story, we're so sorry that you're experiencing it. We actually know how painful that is and deeply hurtful because we've experienced some of that. And we know how hard it is to watch your child get stuck in this emotional bind that they were never meant to carry. So this episode isn't focused on those more extreme situations. We have, though, included links in the show notes to several episodes that can help you to navigate this and support your kids when that other parent is pressuring them to choose sides. So please check those out in the show notes. And if you need a little extra support, reach out to us. Just click the other link in the show notes to schedule a free coaching call with us. We would so love to connect with you.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, so we've thrown a lot at you today as we unpack these two emotional struggles that kids can get stuck in. Loyalty binds, That's between a bio parent and a step parent in the other home, and a parental allegiance, which is between the two bio parents.
Mm-hmm.
And these often show up when there's tension between the two homes. Honey, just like what you experienced with your maternal grandparents and your dad and stepmom.
That's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But here's some important insight. Emotional binds can also form inside your own home that aren't a result of anything going on with the other home.
That's absolutely right. And like we talked about today, it's critical that we do our best to understand what's going on under the surface, because kids are often trying to make sense of things that they just don't fully understand. But kids aren't the only ones who struggle with confusion and tough emotions in blended family dynamics. Adults can get stuck right alongside the children,
especially when it comes to loyalties and priorities.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what we'll focus on in our Simple Step episode next week.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever felt unheard, dismissed, devalued,
Mm-hmm. Or maybe you've struggled to figure out where your loyalties and priorities should be between your kids and your spouse, then you definitely don't want to miss the Simple Step next week. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. In the meantime, we would love for you to take just a moment to give us a star rating wherever you happen to be listening, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you have a couple extra minutes, we would love to hear from you. So particularly on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and just write a review. We would love to hear how the podcast is helping you. So again, thank you so much for choosing to spend this time with us. We value you more than you know. And that's going to make today's episode a wrap.
Until next time.